Hello, class. It's good to see you this evening, and welcome to our first online lecture for our reading class. Each night I will have you watch a short video, a lecture about a reading skill, and the following day we'll practice that together in the class. Today we're talking about previewing and predicting, and if you look at these two words, you'll see they have something in common. Pre. Pre is a prefix, which means before, and that helps us understand what these are used for. Before we read a passage fully, we often want to take a quick look just to get some information. For example, we do this all the time when you pick up a newspaper and you want to choose which stories to read. You never read the newspaper from the very first page all the way to the last page and everything in between. You glance quickly at the headlines, probably, to choose which stories you want to read. And you do that to make a decision about which articles to read. Another example is when you get the mail, you probably have a stack of envelopes, and most of them probably are junk mail or bills. They're not very interesting, and you don't maybe need to open them immediately. So you look at the envelopes to see where they're from or who they're from, and then you decide only to open maybe the most interesting ones. And the same thing with a new book. If you go to the bookstore and you want to choose a novel to read, you'll probably read the front cover and the back cover to decide if the story will be interesting for you. So how do we do this? There's a few things. You want to ask some questions just from the first look. For example, what is it? There's many different types of reading materials, as we talked about, and each kind of material will approach in a different way. So we want to know what kind of reading it is. We want to know maybe who wrote it, if we know something about the author or their purpose. We want to know who it's for. We might ask, what's it about? How long is it? Is it interesting? Is it difficult? And then maybe predict or guess what will happen next. So another specific tool we use is reading the titles. Usually the title of a passage can tell us a lot about what's in it. For example, if you were reading the newspaper and you see the title, Peacekeepers Attacked. If I see this headline, I'm going to ask myself some questions. Who are these peacekeepers? Where were they? Maybe. Who attacked them? And why? These are the kinds of questions I'm going to ask and try to find the answers to when I read the entire story. And we're going to practice this in class tomorrow. Besides the headlines, you might read a little bit more of the passage to get a little more information. So after you read the title, you want to look at any pictures or graphics. Sometimes if there's a chart or a table with information, you can get a lot of data very quickly by looking at that graphic. Then you want to generally read the introduction, the whole introduction paragraph, and maybe the first sentence of each paragraph after that, and then the conclusion. In the introduction, we know that's where we have our thesis statement or the main idea, so that'll help us understand the big picture of the article. And then the first sentence in each paragraph is probably the topic sentence, so we might learn a lot just from reading just a few sentences in the article. You'll also want to notice names and numbers. Those things stand out because capital letters on people's names or the names of places, you can see them very quickly in a passage. And numbers are the same way. They're very easy for your eye to see that, so you might look for those. Now I just want to kind of model this for you and show you what kinds of things I'm asking and looking for as I read a passage. So I'm just going to model this for you, and then we'll again practice tomorrow together. I see a reading passage here, and the title is Accident at the Brookfield Zoo. Okay, I know a zoo is where animals are kept, but I don't know if the animals were involved in the accident. Usually I think of accidents as like automobile accidents. So my first question is, were there animals involved in the accident? And I also want to know, was anybody injured? I want to know how serious the accident was. And I'm curious where the Brookfield Zoo is. I'm not familiar with that name, so I want to find out where that is. Okay, so that's the first part. Now I'm going to go into the rest of the passage. The introduction is, yesterday, a small boy was hurt in an accident at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. Thomas Kemper, 3, is at the city hospital, but the doctors say he is doing well and will go home in a few days. Okay, so I understand this is a news story, and this just happened yesterday, so it's very recent. I see the Brookfield Zoo is in Chicago, which is one thing I wondered about. And I do learn that there was an injury, Thomas Kemper, and he's 3 years old. He's 3 years old, but he's doing well. So someone was injured, but he's okay, so that's good. I still have questions about how the accident happened, and the question about whether animals were involved. So I'm just looking briefly through the rest of the paragraphs. He was at the zoo with his parents and his sister. Then the next paragraph says there are 6 adult gorillas and a 3-month-old baby gorilla at the zoo. So I'm thinking maybe somehow the accident is related to the gorillas. The next paragraph, according to Kevin, that's the father, Thomas, the boy, he loves to climb things. Okay. And so other people saw him and tried to... Okay, so I'm thinking the boy is climbing somewhere near the gorillas. Next paragraph, something remarkable happened. Ooh, that sounds like really important to the story, so I might read the rest of that paragraph. A gorilla went over to the boy. I guess he fell into the area where the gorillas are. And the name is Binti Jua. I don't know that, but that's the mother gorilla. Okay. So she goes over and picks up the boy and carries him over to the door. So I understand that the boy was climbing and he fell in. The gorilla picked him up and took him to safety. That is an incredible story. And let's see, the last paragraph. The scientists at the zoo are not surprised because the mother gorilla is very much like a human, and they take care of children in the same way a human mother does. So, all right, I think I have all my questions answered. Where the zoo is located, someone was hurt but not seriously, and basically I have a pretty good idea of what's in the story, even though it only took me a couple of minutes to just quickly look at a few lines. So that's what we're going to try in class tomorrow. We'll look at some headlines and try to ask some questions and predict what we might see in the rest of the story. And then we'll apply this to some longer readings in our book. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your evening. That is all. Bye-bye.